I still can't erase that day from my mind. My 7-year-old daughter, Emma, was rolling down our driveway in her tiny pink electric wheelchair, giggling as the autumn leaves brushed past her wheels. When Karen, our HOA president in her royal blue uniform shirt, stormed over screaming, "That's an illegal vehicle." Before I could reach her, she was already dialing 911, shouting that my little girl was committing a crime. Within minutes, a police cruiser pulled up, sirens flashing. My daughter froze, terrified, her small hands trembling on the joystick. And when the officer said, "Ma'am, we've got a call about an unauthorized motorized vehicle," I swear my heart stopped. But what happened next turned our quiet neighborhood into a national outrage. Have you ever seen a child being treated like a criminal just because of her disability? Hi, everyone. Before I start this unbelievable story, tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? And if you care about justice, compassion, and truth, make sure to subscribe before we dive into this insane true story. All right, let's start. My name's Michael Turner, and I live with my wife, Laura, and our 7-year-old daughter, Emma, in a quiet HOA neighborhood outside Phoenix, Arizona. Emma was born with spinal muscular atrophy, which means she can't walk like other kids. But she's the happiest child you'll ever meet, always drawing rainbows, feeding birds, or laughing at her mom's silly jokes. A few months ago, her therapist recommended a small electric wheelchair to help her move independently. For the first time in her life, Emma could explore our cul-de-sac without waiting for anyone's help. But the peace didn't last long. Enter Karen Holloway, our self-proclaimed HOA president, who believed every rule in the neighborhood existed to serve her power. She wore that royal blue HOA shirt like a police badge, always inspecting lawns, mailboxes, and now, apparently, even children's wheelchairs. It started with warnings on our door. Then, one morning, she stood on our porch holding a clipboard pointing at Emma's wheelchair. Her voice cold, she said, "This electric device violates HOA mobility and vehicle ordinances. Either remove it or I'll call the police." I thought she was bluffing. I was wrong. The morning it all started felt like any other. Warm Arizona sunlight spilling across the street, sprinklers humming in the distance, and the faint laughter of my daughter Emma as she maneuvered her little pink electric wheelchair around the driveway. She had a sunflower tucked behind her ear and a sticker-covered joystick she was so proud of. Laura stood beside me, sipping her coffee, smiling softly. For once, everything felt normal, peaceful. Then came the sound, the click of heels on concrete. Sharp, heavy, angry. Karen Holloway. She emerged from a corner like a storm cloud in human form. HOA clipboard clutched tight, sunglasses low on her nose, that smug half-smile that always meant trouble. Her royal blue HOA polo was ironed to perfection, gold collar glinting under the sun. She was marching straight toward Emma. "Excuse me." Karen barked. "That device isn't allowed on HOA property." Emma froze, her small hands hovering over the joystick. It's just my chair," she said timidly. Karen's voice sliced through the air. "I've told you people before, motorized vehicles are not permitted on community sidewalks without registration. Your daughter is violating HOA Code Section 47.3. I stepped forward, my protective instinct rising like fire. "Karen, that's not a vehicle. It's a mobility aid. She needs it to move." Karen crossed her arms. "Mobility aid or not, it has an electric motor. That makes it a vehicle. I don't make the rules, Mr. Turner. I just enforce them." Laura's voice cracked. "She's 7, for God's sake." Karen smirked. "Rules are rules. And you agreed to them when you moved here." I felt my fists tighten. But before I could respond, Karen snapped a photo of Emma on her phone. "Click. What are you doing?" I demanded. Documenting the violation, she said coolly, "Expect an HOA citation in your mailbox. And if this continues, I'll have to report it." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, did I do something wrong?" My heart broke right there. "No, baby," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "You didn't do anything wrong." But Karen wasn't done. She took one last step closer, pointing her perfectly manicured finger toward the wheelchair. Either remove this illegal equipment immediately, or I'll call the police myself. Laura gasped. You wouldn't? Oh, I would. Karen interrupted, her lips curling into that cruel little grin. Don't test me. And with that, she turned and walked away, heels echoing down the street like the ticking of a countdown clock. That evening, after putting him into bed, Laura and I sat at the dining table surrounded by HOA letters, some threatening fines, others citing rules that didn't even apply to mobility devices. Every word felt like an attack on our little girl's freedom. I can't believe she's serious, Laura said, voice trembling. She's terrorizing a disabled child. I nodded, anger simmering under my skin. We'll fight it. I'll talk to the HOA board. There's no way they'll stand by this insanity. But the next morning proved how wrong I was. When I walked into the HOA office, a small building near the community pool, Karen was already there behind the desk, smiling like a cat that had found its prey. Well, Mr. Turner, she said sweetly, come to settle your violation? Violation. I snapped. You can't call my daughter's wheelchair illegal. It's protected under the ADA. You're breaking the law, Karen. Her smirk didn't falter. Oh, I'm very familiar with the ADA, but that doesn't exempt homeowners from HOA policy. This neighborhood has rules for everyone's safety. Safety? I leaned closer. She's 7. The only danger here is you. Karen's voice dropped to a cold whisper. If you can't control her, the HOA will. Something inside me snapped. Control her? She's not a dog, she's my daughter. Karen stood, brushing imaginary dust from her sleeve. You have 24 hours to remove that motorized device from HOA property. I slammed my palm on the desk. Or what? She didn't answer. She just pointed toward the security cameras on the ceiling, red light blinking, and said quietly, you'll see. That night, I told Laura everything. We were scared, angry, but mostly confused. Why would anyone want to punish a child for being disabled? We tried to keep things normal for Emma. But the next day, as she rolled outside to feed her favorite squirrel, we noticed a white SUV parked near our mailbox. A man in uniform stepped out, police badge, and Karen was standing beside him. Laura clutched my arm. Oh my God, she actually called them. I ran toward them, my heart pounding. Officer, please, what's this about? The cop looked uneasy. We got a report about an unregistered, motorized vehicle being operated by a minor. Emma looked up at him, tears already welling in her eyes. Sir, it's just my chair. The officer hesitated. Sir, can we talk inside? Karen folded her arms, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Finally, someone's taking this seriously. And that's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. Karen didn't just want to fine us. She wanted to make an example out of us. The moment the officer stepped onto our driveway, I felt the whole neighborhood's eyes on us. Curtains twitched, front doors cracked open. People peeked from porches like it was a show. And in the middle of it all was my 7-year-old daughter sitting small and scared in her wheelchair, clutching her stuffed bunny against her chest. Karen, arms folded across her chest, smirked like a queen who had just conquered her kingdom. Officer, she said loudly, this family has ignored multiple HOA warnings. The child is operating an unauthorized electric vehicle on community property, endangering pedestrians. I clenched my jaw. It's not a vehicle. It's a wheelchair prescribed by her doctor. You're humiliating her. The officer raised a hand. Ma'am, sir, let's calm down. I just need to understand the situation. He crouched next to Emma. Sweetheart, can you tell me what this is? Emma looked at him, her voice trembling. It's my chair. I can't walk, so this helps me move. For a second, the officer's expression softened. I see. He turned back to Karen. Ma'am, this looks like a medical mobility device, not a recreational vehicle. Karen scoffed. Don't be naive, officer. It has a motor. It's electric. I have the HOA manual right here. She waved her clipboard like a sacred book. Page 36, section 47.3. No motorized transport may be operated by minors on common property. I took a step forward. That rule is for scooters and bikes, not medical devices. Are you really going to punish a disabled child because you can't read a law properly? Karen shot me a death glare. You signed the contract when you moved in. Rules don't bend for sympathy. That word, sympathy, burned through me like acid. The officer sighed. All right, I'll need to make a note of this call for record keeping. But from what I can see, this isn't a criminal matter. Karen's smirk vanished. Excuse me? You're not going to confiscate it? Ma'am, the officer said firmly, this child has every right to use a medical mobility aid. Unless there's evidence of danger or misuse, there's no law being broken here. Karen's face turned red. So, you're not going to do your job? I am doing my job, he replied, straightening up, by protecting a disabled child from unnecessary harassment. The crowd gasped softly. Some neighbors clapped quietly from their porches. Karen's eyes darted around, realizing the tide was turning. But instead of backing down, she did something even worse. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Fine, she hissed. Let's see how the public feels about parents who exploit their child's disability to break community rules. I couldn't believe it. You're filming my daughter? She's 7. She's in a public area, Karen snapped. I have the right. Laura stepped in front of Emma, tears burning her eyes. Enough. Stop this. Karen smirked. Smile for the camera, sweetheart. Maybe you'll go viral. That was the moment I lost my composure. I grabbed her phone, slammed it face down on the hood of the police car, and shouted, "Get out of here, Karen!" The officer quickly intervened. "Sir, please, don't make this worse." Karen shrieked. "Did you see that? He assaulted me. He destroyed my property." I stepped back, hands shaking. "I didn't hurt you. I just want you to stop tormenting my daughter." The officer picked up the phone. "It's fine. Screen's not broken. Let's calm down." He turned to Karen. "Ma'am, I strongly suggest you leave before this becomes a harassment complaint." Her face twisted with fury. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure the HOA takes everything from you." She stormed off, heels clicking like gunfire against the pavement, her royal blue shirt catching the sunlight, a false badge of power. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept asking, "Daddy, am I in trouble with the police?" And every time she did, my heart shattered a little more. I stayed up past midnight, writing an email to the HOA board, attaching medical documents and ADA regulations proving Emma's wheelchair was fully legal. I even sent the officer's report as evidence. Laura rubbed my shoulder. "She won't stop, Mike," she whispered. "Karen doesn't care about rules. She wants control." I sighed. Then we fight back legally. But as it turned out, Karen was already one step ahead. The next morning, I woke to a loud knock on the door. Not Karen this time. 2 men in suits, carrying briefcases. "Mr. Turner," one of them said, "we're with the HOA Compliance Division. We've received multiple complaints regarding your property and unauthorized use of an electric device on community grounds." I blinked. "You've got to be kidding me. Didn't the officer already clear this?" They exchanged glances. "We're required to conduct our own inspection." Emma peeked from behind the door, her bunny in hand. "Daddy, are they mad at me again?" I knelt beside her. "No, baby. Nobody's mad at you." But deep down, I was seething. Because I realized Karen wasn't trying to get the police to act. She was trying to build a case. Every word, every accusation, every threat was part of her plan to make our lives unbearable. And the scariest part? It was working. By the next week, our mailbox looked like a legal battlefield. 3 certified letters, each stamped with the HOA logo, each one more threatening than the last. The first claimed our motorized device was an ongoing violation. The second accused us of disruptive behavior and aggression toward an HOA official. And the third, the one that made Laura's hands tremble as she read it aloud, warned that legal action could be taken if we didn't comply. "This is insane," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "They're calling Emma's wheelchair illegal equipment. How is this even possible?" I grabbed the letters, scanning every line. They're bluffing. The ADA protects her. They just want to scare us. But Karen wasn't bluffing. She was preparing for war. 2 days later, I saw her standing on the street again, clipboard in one hand, camera in the other. She was taking pictures of our front yard, of Emma's ramp, even of our mailbox. I walked out, forcing myself to stay calm. Karen, what are you doing now? Routine inspection, she replied without looking up. I've documented your noncompliance. The HOA board will review it. I took a slow step forward. You already lost once. The police report cleared us. Karen looked up with a fake smile. That officer didn't have jurisdiction over HOA policy. The board does. And lucky for me, she tapped her name badge. I'm the chairwoman. I stared at her, realizing she wasn't just enforcing rules, she was the rules. You're harassing a disabled child, I said quietly. Do you even hear yourself? She tilted her head. You know, Mr. Turner, if you'd just followed the community guidelines, we wouldn't be here. You're teaching your daughter that rules don't apply to her. That's dangerous. That's inhuman, I snapped. Her smirk widened. We'll let the board decide. And with that, she walked off humming, like this was a game she'd already won. That evening, I called an attorney. Her name was Rebecca Cole, a civil rights lawyer specializing in ADA cases. When I explained what was happening, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Mr. Turner, I've seen HOA power trips before. But this crosses the line into discrimination. She advised me to document everything, every conversation, every letter, every video. Laura began keeping a file. She called it the Karen folder. We filled it with screenshots, photos, timestamps, and even the officer's report that proved Emma's right to use her wheelchair. But the pressure didn't stop. Karen started using the HOA bulletin board to post anonymous complaints. She printed flyers claiming we were disrupting community harmony and setting a bad example for children. Some neighbors stopped waving when we passed by. Others whispered behind our backs. Emma felt it too. She stopped going outside. Her smile, that sunshine that used to fill our home, started fading. One night, I found her in her room, quietly wiping tears. Daddy, she said, am I a bad kid? I felt my throat tighten. No, baby. You're the bravest kid in the world. You did nothing wrong. She nodded weakly. Then, why does Miss Karen hate me? I couldn't answer. Because I didn't understand it myself. A week later, the final straw came. I was leaving for work when I saw a man nailing a large sign to our lawn. Hey! I shouted. What are you doing? He looked nervous. Just following orders from the HOA, sir. The sign read, Property under investigation pending legal action for code violations. My hand started shaking with rage. Karen was standing across the street, sipping coffee, watching me with that same smug grin. That night, I made a decision. No more silence. I called Rebecca again. File the lawsuit, I said. Every violation, every threat, every second of her harassment. I want it all in court. She paused. Are you ready for what that means? I've got nothing left to lose, I said. The next morning, as I was preparing to send Emma to school, something caught my eye. A police car parked outside again. My stomach dropped. I ran out to meet the officers. What now? One of them held up a paper. We received a call from the HOA, president claiming you've been operating an unregistered electric vehicle and threatening neighbors. I almost laughed from disbelief. She's still doing this? She's the one threatening us. The officer sighed. We'll just need to take a quick look to confirm. They walked around, inspected Emma's wheelchair, and left shaking their heads. You're fine, sir, but maybe consider filing a harassment report. That's when I realized something. They had body cams. And if those cameras caught Karen lying, intimidating, and staging her complaints, it could change everything. I immediately called Rebecca. She smiled when she heard the idea. If there's body cam footage of her false reports, we can subpoena it. That might be the proof that breaks this case open. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Karen thought she could hide behind her HOA badge. But soon, the truth was going to be played in a courtroom, in front of everyone she had fooled. The day of the hearing arrived like a storm cloud over our lives. The HOA had officially sued us for noncompliance, claiming we violated community safety ordinances. But our attorney, Rebecca, had something Karen didn't expect: the police body cam footage. When we walked into the courthouse, Karen was already there: royal blue HOA shirt, gold collar shining, hair slicked back like she was walking into a victory parade. She didn't even look nervous. She had that same smug, icy confidence she always wore, the kind that made your skin crawl. She leaned toward me as we took our seats. "Hope your daughter enjoyed her little joyride," she whispered. "It's about to cost you everything." I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to react. Rebecca put a calming hand on my shoulder. "Let her dig her own grave," she murmured. The proceedings began. The judge, a stern woman with steel gray hair, called the case Homeowners Association of Willow Creek versus Michael and Laura Turner. Karen strutted up to the stand like she owned the place. Her voice dripped with false concern. "Your Honor, we only sought to ensure neighborhood safety. The defendants repeatedly violated policy, ignored citations, and even threatened me physically." Rebecca stood. "Objection, Your Honor. There is no evidence of physical threats, and my clients have submitted proof that the alleged vehicle is a medically prescribed mobility aid." The judge nodded. "Proceed, Ms. Cole." Rebecca approached the bench and set down a flash drive. "Your Honor, we would like to present newly obtained evidence: police body cam footage from the officer who responded to Ms. Holloway's call." Karen's smirk twitched. For the first time, she looked unsure. The footage began playing on the screen. There was Karen, filmed in crisp HD, waving her arms hysterically. "Officer, this child is operating an illegal electric vehicle. She's a danger to the community." The officer's calm voice echoed through the room. "Ma'am, this looks like a wheelchair." "It doesn't matter." Karen snapped. "Rules are rules." Then came the part that froze the entire courtroom. The footage clearly captured her laughing as Emma began crying. Laughing. "Smile for the camera, sweetheart. Maybe you'll go viral." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Even the judge's expression hardened. Rebecca paused the video. "Your Honor, this is the woman claiming to act in the community's best interest. This is how she treats a disabled child." Karen shot up from her chair. "That video is taken out of context." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "The context is your own words." The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Holloway, did you knowingly file multiple false police reports against this family?" Karen's voice wavered. I was only enforcing regulations." "Regulations," Rebecca said, "that do not exist for medical mobility devices. You ignored federal law, harassed a child, and weaponized your position for personal vendetta." Karen's face turned crimson. "They mocked me. They disrespected my authority." The judge's gavel slammed. "Enough. This is not a playground for your ego." The courtroom fell silent. Rebecca turned to the jury box. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is bigger than an HOA rule. This is about power, abuse, and cruelty. No parent should ever have to fight to protect their disabled child from their own neighborhood." I looked at Emma sitting quietly in her chair beside Laura, her small hands folded in her lap, eyes glistening but brave. After the final arguments, the judge recessed for deliberation. The room was heavy with tension. Karen sat rigid, jaw locked, fingers gripping the edge of the table like she could will the outcome her way. 30 minutes later, the judge returned. She looked at Karen. "Ms. Holloway, your actions show gross misconduct, harassment, and discriminatory intent. The court hereby orders the HOA to dismiss all charges against the Turner family." Karen's eyes widened. The judge continued, her voice steady and cold. "Furthermore, the court finds you personally liable for emotional distress and defamation. You are to issue a public apology and pay restitution to the family." Karen stood, shouting, "You can't do that. I'm the HOA president." The judge's gavel struck again. "Not anymore. Effective immediately, you are removed from your position." The gallery erupted in whispers. Laura broke into tears. Emma reached for her hand. Karen stormed out of the courtroom, cameras flashing in her face as reporters swarmed. Her downfall was caught on every news outlet by evening. the HOA tyrant who tried to criminalize a little girl's wheelchair. That night, the headline read, "Local HOA president exposed for harassing disabled child, justice served." When we got home, the sunset painted the neighborhood gold. Emma rolled out to the yard. No fear this time, no watching eyes. Just her and her freedom. She looked back at me and asked softly, "Daddy, can I go to the park now?" I smiled, voice breaking. "You can go anywhere you want, sweetheart." And as she rolled down the sidewalk, neighbors came out clapping, waving, even apologizing. Some brought flowers. Some offered hugs. The same street that once judged her now celebrated her courage. By sunrise the next morning, our quiet neighborhood had become a circus. Reporters lined the street. Cameras flashed, vans from CNN, Fox, and ABC News parked near the curb like it was breaking news, because the story had gone viral overnight. The body cam footage from the courtroom had been leaked, circulating across social media. People from all over the country were sharing it. A grown woman in authority mocking a disabled child, calling the police on her for using a wheelchair. Within 24 hours, the hashtag Justice for Emma was trending nationwide. And for the first time in months, we weren't alone. Laura sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through messages, tears running down her cheeks. "Mike, look at this. People from New York, Seattle, Dallas, even Alaska are sending donations and support." I glanced at the screen. Hundreds of comments poured in. "I can't believe this happened in America. That little girl's a hero. That HOA lady needs jail time. Stay strong, Turner family, you're fighting for all of us." Emma sat beside her, eating cereal and watching herself on TV. The newscaster's voice filled the room. The Turner's case has sparked a national debate about HOA abuse and disability discrimination. Lawmakers in Arizona are already calling for reform. She looked up, confused but smiling. "Daddy, why are people saying my name?" I knelt beside her. "Because you were brave, sweetheart. You showed everyone what's right." She nodded, munching thoughtfully. "Does that mean Miss Karen has to say sorry?" I couldn't help but laugh softly. Oh, she already did on live TV. That part was almost surreal. Karen, the woman who once ruled our community like a dictator, was now the most hated person on the internet. A video surfaced of her outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters. Her hair was messy, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to hurt the child," she said. "It was a misunderstanding." But people weren't buying it. The comments were merciless. Her name became synonymous with cruelty. Memes, videos, parodies, even late-night comedians roasted her. Still, deep inside, I didn't feel joy. Just relief. Because the truth was out. Days later, I received an unexpected call from the governor's office. A woman's calm voice said, "Mr. Turner, we've seen the footage. The governor would like to invite your family to the state capitol next week. There's something he'd like to present to your daughter." When we arrived, cameras lined the hall. The governor knelt beside Emma, shaking her tiny hand as photographers clicked away. "Emma Turner," he said with a warm smile, "you've inspired this entire state. Starting today, I'm signing an emergency reform bill, the Emma's Law Act, to protect children with disabilities from HOA harassment and discrimination." The applause that followed was thunderous. Emma blinked, confused but happy. "Does that mean nobody can take my chair again?" The governor smiled. "That's exactly what it means, sweetheart." That night, as we drove home, the world felt different. Neighbors waved. Strangers honked and clapped as we passed. The same sidewalks that once felt hostile now felt safe, ours again. Laura leaned against me, whispering, "We made it." But as peaceful as it was, I knew there was one more thing I had to do. The following week, I drove to the HOA office one last time. The board had been replaced, the sign on the door repainted, and Karen's name plaque removed from the wall. I stepped into the empty lobby, where sunlight streamed through the blinds, the same place she once stood, threatening us with her clipboard. Rebecca had told me Karen resigned permanently and moved out of the community after the trial, but she left behind a sealed envelope addressed to me. Inside, one sentence was written in her tight, angry handwriting. "You think you won, but someday you'll understand rules exist for a reason. I stared at the paper for a long moment, then folded it quietly and dropped it into the trash. Because she was wrong. Rules exist to protect people, not destroy them. And for the first time, I felt peace. Weeks passed. Emma returned to school, where her classmates greeted her with cheers and handmade posters. She was a little shy, but that day, she told her teacher, "My wheelchair's not illegal anymore. It's part of me." The whole class clapped. Her courage had done what no law ever could. It changed hearts. Months later, our story aired on 60 Minutes. The segment showed Emma painting flowers in the park, smiling under the golden light, while the narrator said, "From fear to freedom, the little girl whose courage changed a law." Laura and I sat on the couch, holding hands. I glanced at the TV, then at our daughter, laughing again, free again. After everything we'd endured, the humiliation, the threats, the courtroom, it all came down to that moment. Peace and justice. But just when life seemed normal again, something unexpected arrived in the mail, a plain brown envelope with no return address. Inside was a USB drive, and a note that said, "You should know what really happened that day before the police came." Laura looked at me, uneasy. "Mike, who sent this?" I plugged the drive into my laptop. The video began playing grainy security footage from the HOA office days before the police incident. Karen wasn't alone. She was meeting with someone, a man in a suit with the HOA logo on his jacket. I couldn't make out their words, but one sentence came through clear. "If this goes viral," he said, "we'll all be ruined." I stared at the screen in disbelief. There was more to this story, something bigger hidden behind Karen's ego. And as the video faded to black, one thought chilled me to my core. This wasn't just Karen's war anymore. Someone else had helped her start it. The footage from that USB drive replayed in my head for days. Karen sitting in the HOA office. A man beside her, tall, gray suit, gold HOA badge gleaming on his lapel. His voice calm, deliberate, rehearsed. "If this goes viral, we'll all be ruined." The man's face was familiar, because I'd seen him before. Martin Hale, the regional HOA director, the man who oversaw dozens of neighborhood associations across Arizona, including ours. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't just Karen being Karen. This was part of something bigger, a cover-up. I showed the footage to Rebecca, our lawyer. She watched in silence, her brow furrowing deeper by the second. When it ended, she exhaled slowly. "That's damning. You think it's real?" I asked. "Oh, it's real," she said. "And if Hale was involved, this goes beyond local harassment. This is systemic abuse of power and obstruction of justice." She paused. "But whoever sent you this knew what they were doing. Be careful. This might not be over." 2 days later, an unmarked SUV parked near our driveway. Same spot Karen used to stand, same tense silence. At first, I told myself it was nothing, but when I stepped outside, the SUV drove off, too fast, too deliberate. That night, someone slid another note under our door. "Stop digging. It's over." Laura's face went pale. "Mike, we should call the police." I nodded. "We will. But not before I find out who's behind this." The next morning, Rebecca and I went to the county courthouse. Using the subpoena from our previous case, she filed for access to HOA financial records. What we found left us speechless. Hidden inside the association's budget were multiple maintenance fees, thousands of dollars transferred to a private consulting firm owned by Martin Hale. Rebecca's eyes widened. He was funneling money through fake contracts, and Karen was helping him. I felt the room tilt. They hadn't just harassed us for power. They were using the HOA to launder money, and when I challenged their authority, Karen targeted my daughter to scare us into silence. Rebecca wasted no time. She forwarded the documents and footage to the state attorney's office. Within a week, everything exploded again. News anchors replayed the body cam footage, this time alongside the new evidence. The headline read, "HOA corruption scandal exposed. Whistleblower family uncovers secret financial scheme." Protesters gathered outside the HOA headquarters holding signs that read, "Justice for Emma" and "End HOA abuse." And just like that, The same system that once stood against us began to crumble. A month later, I sat in the courtroom again. But this time, I wasn't the defendant. Karen and Martin stood side by side at the defense table. She looked drained. No makeup, no confidence, no smirk. Martin avoided eye contact completely. The prosecutor stood tall. The evidence shows a deliberate conspiracy to misuse HOA funds, falsify violations, and intimidate residents who questioned authority, including a family with a disabled child. The judge's words echoed through the room when he finally ruled. Karen Holloway and Martin Hale, you are both sentenced to 18 months in county jail, 5 years probation, and permanent ban from any HOA management positions. The gavel fell. And just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, the crowd erupted into applause as Emma waved shyly from her wheelchair. A woman from a disability rights organization knelt beside her and handed her a medal engraved with the words, "For courage in the face of cruelty." Emma looked up and asked, "Is it really finished now?" I knelt beside her, brushing her hair back. "Yeah, sweetheart, it's finished." Laura smiled through tears. "You did it, Emma. You changed everything." Weeks passed. The world slowly moved on, but our lives didn't go back to how they were. They got better. The HOA was restructured. New leadership, new policies, and this time, compassion came first. The ramps and accessibility zones that Karen once hated were now mandatory. Emma's name was engraved on a plaque near the community park, in honor of Emma Turner, whose courage gave every child the right to move freely. Every time she rolled past it, she'd wave and smile. "That's me, Daddy." And I'd nod. "That's you, sweetheart. My hero." One evening, months later, I sat on the porch watching the sunset. The air was calm, the neighborhood peaceful. The mail truck stopped by, leaving a small envelope with a golden seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Mr. Turner, my name is Sarah. I worked as an assistant in the HOA office last year. I'm the one who sent you the footage. I couldn't let them keep doing what they were doing. Thank you for standing up, not just for your daughter, but for all of us who were too afraid to speak. With gratitude, Sarah." I sat there quietly, staring at the letter until the sky turned red. Somewhere in that moment, I realized something profound. Every time you stand against injustice, no matter how small, someone else finds the courage to stand too. So, if you're watching this right now, remember this: never let anyone use rules, titles, or power to break the human spirit. If you believe in compassion over control, in kindness over cruelty, share Emma's story. Tell people what happened. Because there are still Karens out there hiding behind clipboards and uniforms, using authority to crush those who can't fight back. Let's make sure they never win again. Now, before you go, comment below the name of your city and let us know where you're watching from. And if you stand with Emma, hit subscribe so we can keep spreading stories of courage, justice, and hope, one voice at a time.